Let's see here. I have a question for Scott, specifically Scott. Well, and Rhett's on, so we're going to ask Rhett and Scott this because you guys both apply this. Does anyone else live in the Bible Belt, USA? I hate it here. Obviously, this is from an atheist. You guys, and I grew up there, but Scott still lives there. Rhett, you still live there. Give us your thoughts on being an atheist in the Bible Belt, specifically where you guys are in northern Florida, where it's very conservative and Republican.
Sure, of course. Here in North Florida, I've been atheist for as long as I can remember. I went to church and everything like that, but my parents weren't believers, and it was always just kind of, I don't know, mythology or whatever. I believe in God in the same way that you might believe in Santa Claus, kind of, right? It was sort of, it's like a fun thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Despite that, I'd been saved countless times and, brought home many times. And they tell my mom, like, oh, we got to him this time. He's saved this time. Which is, always a very strange thing, where you're like taken out of class or whatever. Bible class,
God.
right? And then, they have a pastor sit with you and they're like explaining who Jesus is and all that.
Wait, hold on. Did you say take you out of class? Like school or high?
No. This would have been Sunday school.
Okay,
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, not class, but no, a few things at school too. I would always hear that kind of stuff. Once it gets out that you're an atheist, then like that, that's what everybody knows you as. I remember countless Facebook posts that my mom would tell me about because I'm not on Facebook about like she would be like, "Did you get bullied at school today?" And I'm like, "What?" And she goes over there and it's like, Anthony's mom just said that her son stood up for you because like everyone was making fun of you because you were an atheist. And I was like, no,
really,
that didn't happen. But they would.
That's interesting. So you were out, and when do you think you sort of became, let people be aware that you were an atheist?
I was a very edgy middle schooler, so probably right at the beginning of 6th grade. I don't know, like 14 or something like that.
Okay, well that's pretty young. Yeah. It's pretty young to take on that burden. Meaning that you knew.
I saw anti. There's a million debate videos and everything on YouTube, and especially back then, it was like at a fever pitch. So, and I thought those were totally awesome, and I wanted to be that. so I'd go to school ready to fight.
Yeah. Scott, how about you? You've been in Florida. Well, you grew up in Alabama, so you've been south your whole life.
Yeah, no, I grew up in like Alabama.
Hardcore.
Yeah. Yeah, like when my family moved out of Alabama, the little town literally went from a 4-digit population to a 3-digit population with the Methodist church on one end of town and the Baptist church on the other end of town.
Yeah.
It's and I think my response is going to resonate with a lot of people who are trying to deal with the fact that they're living the Bible Belt, especially as they're deconstructing or becoming more skeptic. I grew up in one of those small areas where the religion was prevalent. Everybody went on Sunday mornings and everybody went on Wednesday nights, and then they were pretty much alcoholics the rest of the time. It was more that conditioned social thing that kind of agreed with a lot of their bigotry. My dad's United Methodist Church was one of the ones that was the schism that they just had. They voted to leave the United Methodist Church. But even here, I'm an actor. We do a lot of theater, and we have to use church spaces.
Yeah,
because that's just the space that there is. Which is funny because we were having one of the roundtables, and I think the question was, "Is teaching children about religion child abuse?" At the time, that I had a matinee at a church the day of. Our dressing room was the youth group room.
Correct. Yes.
And two of the people in the cast were members of the church youth group, and I was like, awkward.
Awkward. Yeah. Yeah. My son was in Boy Scouts. We met at churches. All right.
Yeah. I'll say this. When it comes to living in the Bible Belt, I've always surrounded myself with very artistic, loving people. Not a lot of those people come from church backgrounds. And I tend to hang with people who I don't want to say agree with things I agree with, but have what I think is the level of empathy that I do and genuine care for other people. And I think because those are the types of people that I kind of gravitate towards, it naturally gravitates me away from people who attend church regularly and things like that. So, I'll be glad to leave Florida mainly to get away from what little influence there is conservatively. But I'll be frank, I don't see a lot of it because it's just not in my circle, which is why having a circle, having your community, having your tribe, having your group, whatever vernacular you want to use for that, of just good people who share common values can help, because a lot of those groups tend not to have to rely on religion for the social aspect that provides. And I would encourage anybody who really has that concern to go out and find those non-Christian groups. You don't even have to get involved in Christian discussions or anything like that. Groups like Atheistville, and find communities that are just open and accepting without having to deal with that flack. You don't
which
have
is
to
tougher.
be anti-religious.
Right. No, I maintain I'm not anti-religion. In fact, you just said that to meet up a group. I'm going to put this up here. Mike and I know each other from Texas. He says, I live in Texas, but I have several atheist friends here. I met Mike for that same reason. My wife and I started going to a, what was it called? Drinking liberally, because we knew we were in Texas and we were in a suburb of Dallas. Like, we know we're behind enemy lines, but we got to find a tribe. So we looked up, MJ is great at finding these things. She found a group of liberals. I'm like, all right, I don't know if they're atheists, but because it is Texas after all, they may not be, but they're liberals. And we know we're going to have some overlap there. And so that's how I met Mike and a lot of people. And it gave us somebody to hang out with and a group to meet up with occasionally and just feel like, okay, I'm not the only one here in the entire state of Texas. And it's just like you were saying there in Florida. Same thing. As I was younger, I had to find my own, and you and I were both actors. As I started finding acting groups and, like you say, groups of people that were other actors, that became my tribe of people that I knew. And all the people are gravitated towards theater. And you said artistic people. It's a different crowd. They have a different mindset a lot of times. But finding that, way better than if I had been sitting at home isolated and not finding it. And same thing. This Atheistville is a absolute reaction of when MJ and I moved to Chicago, where we live now. Again, we moved here. We didn't know anybody.
Right.
So we started looking for groups just so we'd find someone to hang out with. I mean, it could have been a bowling league or anything. I mean, we didn't care. Just find people. And we happened to run across an atheist group. And we're like, okay, let's try that. And that was 10 years ago. And I've mentioned this. Larry and I went to the very first in-person meeting 10 years ago. So Larry and I have known each other for 10 years because of that group. And it gave us people that are like-minded. So we don't have to worry about when we say something or someone says, what are you doing Sunday morning? Where are you going to church? Like, I'm not going to church. I'm an atheist and have to deal with all that. Nobody in my group, they all know I'm not going to church Sunday because neither are they. You know what I mean? No one's worried about coming to this because they're not going to Sunday morning or Sunday evening service for some bizarre reason, like twice as too much, you know? So but finding the group I think is super important. That's why we do in-person meetups. Brian, he just said, Brian Bueno, that's how we met. That's how I met Brian. And it's why I have one of Brian's wonderful paintings hanging on my living room right now. Met him in the same group. He's a fantastic guy and a fantastic artist. So look him up. I don't know if Brian, you have a website, but throw it up there. I'll put it up. But Brian's a fantastic artist. But we met again, probably 10 years ago by going to that. So I 100% agree with you on that.
I think this is one of the things that's scaring the religious is that now that we have the internet, we have a way to connect with people who are living differently or living previously they would have had to hide it just in their own head.
Yes.
So that they didn't get scorned.
Mm-hmm.
And now that we have the internet, we can come out. We can have little groups and stuff. And not, like you said, not be afraid to that you're going to say something that's going to offend somebody.
And that actually that piggybacks on something that was said earlier. You know how you got open and introduced to that stuff in our generation?
Mm-hmm.
Went to college where your parents weren't there telling you what to think.
Yes.
And got to make up your own decisions around people who had other differing opinions and got to think for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. Indoctrinated, I meant, you know.
Yeah, totally. Radicalized.
got
radical opinion.
radicalized. But no, I totally agree with that, Larry. And I think it's just a new version of the kids getting radicalized on campus as all these left-wing, anti-theism or atheism, whichever one it is.
You get a chance to meet, especially in college is a good example. And I know why they're doing what they say when they say it's radicalized, this, that, and the other. But the reality is too, a lot of kids go off to college, like out of their bubble, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting right next to Hamad here, and he seems perfectly normal. He's not trying to kill me at all, like I've been told. Or, that girl is dating that girl, and they seem lovely. I mean, it's not at all what I thought life was supposed to be outside of my tiny-ass little Christian little village that I grew up in, because you're exposed to outside world. That's important. You learn things just from the book learning, as they say, but you also learn life is vastly different than you grew up, no matter where you grew up, unless you grew up in Chicago, New York City, where you're surrounded by so many different types of people. But most people live in smaller towns, even small cities. Everybody's kind of the same. You have to get out of that to realize, it's way different the further away you get from your hometown, which is why I'm a big proponent of move away from your hometown. Rhett, talking to you, graduate college, move away,
move away,
to a place where it's totally different, because you may move back. His grandmother, my mom, she moved back, but it was 17 years later, but at least she saw what it was like 1,000 miles from where she grew up. You know what I mean? May not love it, but at least you'll know it's there, Yeah. It's insane.
I think that conservatives paint an unbelievably bleak picture of what college is supposed to be like. I feel like college, if there's anywhere to go, I feel like it should be very challenging. You should meet a lot of new crazy stuff. Whenever they talk about we need to get rid of the leftist ideology, they shouldn't be learning about the trans stuff. Where else are you supposed to learn about that stuff?
Church.
College is supposed to be a place where you learn the cutting edge and the new and the exciting and the strange. You should read Mein Kampf just as much as you should read a leftist's guide to I don't know any queer authors or anything like that. You should be forced to experience many wondrous and strange things in college. And so this idea that it should all be the same and you should go to a college where everybody's conservative and thinks exactly like you is the
echo chamber has to stop at some point, right? Yeah,
I can't imagine what the world was like before the internet, though. I'm assuming that the internet must have been absolutely devastating
dark and
for
evil
Christianity.
because
exactly what the names are gone now. The guy in the bottom left said.
Sorry, Larry. Yeah. I don't know from your perspective. I'm not sure Larry or Scott. You pick whichever one.
The bald one. But the internet, it allows you to, go and meet people and, experience communities that you never would have been able to. Here in Florida, whenever I took a bunch of my advanced placement tests, they were in a church because that was a big building where you could go and do stuff. One of our events for graduation was in a church because the church was the largest building in town. So I could see, they say the under God and the Pledge of Allegiance every day. If I didn't have the internet to go see what other people thought, then everyone around me is Christian. Everything we do is, in the context of the church is the biggest thing in town. I wouldn't know a world beyond that, right?
Yeah, but you wouldn't. Yeah, and your town is small, even though you're adjacent to a larger, what I would now, having not lived there in a while and living in Chicago, you live in a small town next to a small city. Versus a large city like I live in LA.
We have
or
a McDonald's, a Burger King, and a church.
And I remember your town had a McDonald's, and that was it. It's in a Burger King.
Yeah.
Actually, a few years ago, we lost the Burger King, so now it's just.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to today's show. I really hope you enjoyed it. Do me a favor and like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. That helps us grow and it lets us keep bringing you more voices from the other side of belief. Until we talk again, be kind to one another and remember that reason and compassion go a long way.